So, ladies and gentlemen, Daniel and Becky Perez, welcome. I was going to sit down, but I don't want to be a lazy missionary.
He mentioned we have like these coloring books that are for like little kids and then older kids too, and then there's some random other things you could just take whatever you want. And this is a book I was going to pass around. It's just like of our home life, so it's not necessarily a bunch of airplanes, but so you can just
So we're Daniel and Becky Perez. We'll start off, I guess, just telling you a little bit about us. We have 4 kids. We have our oldest is 8. Her name is Reese, and then Joseph is 6. And Lily and Ellie are our twin girls. They're 3.5. So we serve with Mission Aviation Fellowship in Papua, Indonesia. Now, before you come up to me and say, "Hey, I know somebody who lives in Papua New Guinea," same island, different country, and we don't actually cross the border very often because it's just kind of a hassle. So just a little bit about Indonesia. Indonesia is the most populous Muslim country in the world. It's made up of about 17,500 islands and is actually end-to-end about the size of the United States. There's just a lot of water, not as much land. Where we live in Papua, the people are different. The rest of the island, they look more like what you would think of as an Asian, and then in Papua where we live, it's more dark curly hair and dark skin. So that's a little bit about Indonesia and where we are, and we'll kind of come back to that. But I thought we'd just kind of tell you how we got here and just kind of our testimonies. I grew up here at Cyprus. I've gone here. This is the only church I've ever gone to except for when I went to college. And so having kind of the exposure that Cyprus gives in missions as a kid, I thought, well, that would be kind of cool to be a missionary. I was like, I'd like to live in a jungle and have pet monkeys and lizards interesting side note, Papua actually does not have any monkeys. There's no big cats. All we have is wild pigs and some snakes and crocodiles. I know, we have more animals in Texas. But in high school, I kind of again felt the Lord call me to missions. I am not a biblical scholar. I don't really even like school. I don't like studying. But I always enjoyed working with my hands and technical things. And so I learned about mission aviation. And I thought, well, I could do that. I was like, I like working on stuff. And so I applied to the Moody Bible Institute. They have a mission aviation program. Somehow got accepted, got into the program. And so I graduated from there in 2005. We got married in 2003. I got that right? So that's kind of a side track. Becky will tell that part. So, yeah.
So I grew up in Cypress, Texas, not this church, but the city. My parents still live here in the same house I grew up in. And my parents are Catholic, so I went to the Catholic Church, Christ the Redeemer. And always knew, like kind of what Jesus did, but wasn't in my heart by any means. And I went to Sci-Fair High School and just was like a really insecure teenager. I just wanted to be popular and fit in, but I wasn't good at anything. So like I couldn't be the dancer or, like the band player or whatever. So I just felt like really lonely and lost and insecure, even though my parents were very loving and supportive and were always there for me. I just still felt really lost and alone. I don't know if you guys know the Anderson family. They used to go here. So Summer Anderson was praying for me all this time to come to church with her. And so finally I did. And that's the time when Greg Dupre was the youth pastor. And he's very missions minded, of course. And so I was actually saved on a ski trip through the youth group. And Allison Dupre kind of led me through the prayer, and Joan Jones was my, 242. Back then we called it something different though. She was my 242 leader and just really discipled me through tons of questions. And my parents didn't really take it that seriously and just kind of said, oh, just, have fun, just be a teenager, don't worry about all that. And but I was like, well, I'm going to keep going with that. They weren't upset, but it was just kind of weird. So I kind of got exposed to missions here and heard a missionary speak here at our youth group. And I just felt this stirring in my heart. But at the time it was kind of like do you think I'm going to have to do that, God? Like, not that I don't want to, but it's like, oh, that's going to be hard, and I don't know about that. Because at the time, it was this missionary in India who was living in the slums by himself, a single man, and, just like really intense, not exactly the same thing we do. So it kind of scared me, but at the same time, kind of prompted my heart. And so Daniel and I met in the youth group. I went to Cypher, but he was homeschooled, but we still met here. He played in the band, the guitar, so like I really liked that, and like I was hoping he would sit by me, and so we started dating our senior year of high school. And he went to Chicago, and I went to Waco, and so we still kind of dated. Well, we did date through that time apart, and then we got engaged when we were juniors in college. And I moved up to Tennessee because that's where his flight program was with Moody Bible Institute at the time. That you had to go to Tennessee for the actual flying. And so I went to a school there, and then we got married the next year when we were seniors. So that was fun, just like being really poor and in love and thinking everything was wonderful. And it was. So then we both graduated, and we moved back to Cyprus because we just like hadn't been to this church for 5 years, and we really wanted to reconnect. And God definitely had things to teach us about finances and marriage, and we made some really dumb financial decisions. But I think, God just helped us grow. I'm glad we didn't do that when we were, thousands of miles away. So, we started a family here. And then we always kind of knew we wanted to go with MAF just because of the organizational structure of it. Like, we're not real detail people, and so they kind of walk you through the steps. They're going to shun
us if we're unruly.
I know, like, I was really convicted by that. I was like, oh gosh. But, so anyways, we started our journey with MAF, and like, I think in 2010, finally moved. So I'll let you take it from there.
So a lot of people say, well, what does your typical day look like? Oh, I should tell you about MAF. I'll get fired. So MAF, we are a technical mission. Our mission statement is sharing the love of Jesus Christ through aviation and technology so that isolated people can be physically and spiritually transformed. Did I get it? So MAF was founded in 1945 by former World War II pilots who saw that they could use this airplane to reach isolated people. And so many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with the story of Nate Saint. He was an MAF pilot. He's like, actually, we have parts of that plane sitting in the lobby at MAF in Idaho. So kind of a neat history for us. So we've kind of branched out from just aviation. We have teachers because that is just a huge thing for families, not just with MAF, but other missions serving in these isolated places to have a good education for their kids. Not everyone wants to homeschool, and so to provide teachers is fantastic. We also do, it's called LT, Learning Technologies. So they just think of, a lot of it is thinking of creative ways to get the gospel into restricted access countries, as well as providing, Bible study materials on DVDs that pastors can use. Because a lot of these pastors in other countries have not had significant Bible training, and so if we can provide them with those resources, that's a huge help. We also have full-time mechanics, maintenance specialists, and then there's us, the pilot/mechanic. Did I miss anybody? Oh, we also do a lot of like IT stuff, VSAT systems and that sort of stuff. So, a typical day for me, I generally fly 4 or 5 days a week. This is the cockpit where I fly. That's me, my elbow. So Papua is kind of an interesting program. And a lot of MAF's other programs, it's really become just a way for us to get into the country. And a lot of the missionaries are what you would consider frontline, meeting with people, evangelizing, and we just use the airplane to get there. In Papua, there's still a lot of foreign missionaries as well as a lot of church workers that we fly around, and so that's just a lot of fun for us. My cargo can vary from building materials to food, sick passengers. That's one of my favorite passengers right there. I don't know how well you can see, but pastors going into villages to visit with other people. and then missionaries that are just working in these tribes. So fly 4 or 5 days a week. The weather gets bad usually in the afternoon, so we try and take off at sunrise, and then we'll do the flights. Usually there's some maintenance afterwards. About every 5 weeks, our plane will have to bring it in for an inspection that takes about a week, sometimes 10 days. So that's kind of what just the normal life is for me. I just want to share with you a little bit, I guess, 2 highlights from this past term. The first one is Indonesia, or Papua specifically, has over 200 different languages. And so while Indonesian is the national language, there's a lot of people that don't speak it. The education system there is pretty weak, and so there's still a lot of people who don't speak Indonesian and just speak their tribal language. So of those 200 different languages, there are, I believe it's 6 now completed Bible translations. And so this is one that I got to fly out. This is like the last chapter of the book of Numbers, which will complete the whole Bible translation. Yes?
Do they all have written languages?
No.
Okay.
So the process, I mean, this is why it takes so long. So missionaries will move into a village, learn to speak the language, and that can take a year to 2 years. Then they have to figure out how to write the language. Then they have to figure out how to teach the people how to read and write before they can even read the Bible. I mean, they'll start teaching, but yeah, it's a long process. Now you know why I didn't want to be a Bible translator. So, but this specific translation was started in the 80s by a family. He moved into that valley in the 60s, I think. And I got to meet him, actually. He doesn't live there anymore. But he talks about, as I was flying him out to his village, he's like, I got invited to a cannibal feast right over here. And so, I mean, literally 50 years ago, these people were eating each other. So you think about the change that the gospel has brought to that island, and it's pretty incredible. So they started in the 80s, and then it was actually the wife who did most of this translation work. She passed away, and so the translation kind of just stopped for a while until these 2 national guys, Amos and Enos, decided that they would continue the work. And so the village of Silimo is the name, agreed to provide these 2 guys with food and basic needs so that they could just translate the Bible. So they just finished not too long ago. There's still a lot of reviewing and typos, and we fly those in and out all the time, which is a lot of fun. We fly them out. They get mailed to Canada, actually, where there's a church there that just types them in, because it's all handwritten. So they type them in, they send them to another place that prints them out, and they go back into the village, and they look over them and correct them, and so it's kind of a long cycle, but a lot of people involved.
So the lettering isn't like English lettering?
I think generally they do write it.
Yeah.
Like this phonetic order?
Yeah.
Because the Indonesian language is the same alphabet, and I mean, some of the letters sound different, of course, but so it's
Yeah, it would not have been pretty if we had to learn.
Yeah, I was thinking like how they just type it in and check that.
yeah.
So, yeah, they just use the English alphabet. So this is just a picture of some of our team. This is the missionaries that live in that village now. He's the son of the people that opened the village, and they still live there in that house. They're Christian and Missionary Alliance missionaries. They're very involved. AIDS is rampant in the town where we live, really on the whole island. There was a doctor from South Africa that went into one of the villages that I go to frequently, did AIDS testing, and found that this is like high school and down, that over 50% of the kids were HIV positive. So I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. But he's very active in sports ministry and AIDS education, and then he supervises the 2 national workers with that translation. So we talked a little bit about the process of translating the Bible. And so really the next highlight for us, I think this term, started in the village of Bina. We met some new tribes, missionary friends in language school, actually, and got to know them. And they moved to Papua with us, well, at the same time.
Yeah.
And so what they do, they come in, they do surveys and try and figure out what village they're going to go into and work. And they found out about a village. It's about 30 minutes from where we live, a 30-minute flight. And this village had heard, someone else had told them, if you build a runway, missionaries will come. And so 20 years ago, this village built a runway, and then it just sat there for 20 years. And so they found out about it and went in there. So they went in there, there's 4 families, usually 2 or 3 are there at a time, are now living in the village of Bina. They moved in a year and a half ago. So they're now in the throes of learning the language. But Joseph, my son, and I, we got to go in there, and we spent about 4 days helping them build their house. And so that was a lot of fun. We got to get to know the village people. That's my son Joe. And they're just sitting at the top of the runway there. And so Joe, I hardly saw him. He was running around with the village kids and the other missionary kids while we worked. Some of the kids gave him a bow and arrow. The village kids made him a bow and arrow. I've been told one of the games these kids play is they go out to the runway in the evenings with their bows and arrows and just shoot the arrows up in the air and then run around and try not to get hit. The missionaries recommended that they quit doing that game.
Because then they'll come to them if they get hurt.
Yeah, so they're right now learning the language. It's hard because they're so busy with just like simple medical care that these people come to them for that these people have not had access to that stuff ever. So I think it's a learning process for both sides of the team. That's the house we got to work on.
So MAF's like the only people that will fly into that village. There's a couple other ones, but there are thousands of dollars more than like a flight that MAF would provide. So they order up all the food that they'll want, and MAF will bring it. If they need to go to the coast for any reason, because there's like nothing there, absolutely nothing. There's just the houses that they've built. And so that's where MAF comes in. It's kind of cool. And when Daniel went to visit, I sent up like a bunch of ground beef and like taco seasoning packets I had because I felt bad she was going to feed my 2 boys for a week or whatever, and she was like, "Oh, that's great," So that's kind of fun.
How do they earn a living for food and things like that?
The people,
villagers.
They will raise pigs. I think they've killed all the wild pigs anywhere near the population, so they'll raise pigs. A lot of them. They'll grow sweet potatoes. And then the sweet potato leaves they eat as well.
That's really basically all they eat.
Yeah.
It's like, rice gets flown in and the government provides rice for free. Or is it free? I think it's free.
Yeah.
And so they work in there, the women work in the garden all day for the sweet potatoes, and then they eat like the greens that grow on top. And then Daniel will fly in like ramen type noodles, and they'll eat those too. That's like all they eat really.
I think probably every 6 months the government will give out rice, and so
they don't have like jobs or they're earning money.
No,
they just are also okay.
Like in our town, everyone who works is like I've seen 1 or 2 Papuans work, like the dark skinned people. It's usually the other more Asian looking Indonesians who run the stores and the businesses and stuff. So like the government, police.
With the transmigration, because like the island of Java is so crowded that the government in the past has said we'll give you land on other islands if you'll move, and so, and it's honestly like the Wild West where we live. It's these people are coming out there like wanting to get rich, seek their fortune, and so they're saying with the rate of people that are moving from other islands to the island of Papua, there'll be more non-Papuans on the island by I think it's like 2020 or something. So, with that has come a lot of military presence. A lot of Islamists come with that. And with that military presence, there's a separatist group that wants to secede from Indonesia. But Indonesia doesn't want Papua to leave because it's got a giant gold and copper mine, and so it's a lot of money for Indonesia. So there is like a rebel war going on. It's not significant at this point, but I don't know, probably 20, 25 people die each year in that war. Let's see what's next. So the runway, because it had been built 20 years ago, we kind of got it up to usable, but then it needed more work to meet our normal standards. And so I spent some time out there working on the runway for them. So now Becky will tell you just a little bit about kind of the normal day-to-day life.
So our little town is called Wamena, and it's like in the very middle of Papua, and so there's like this big mountain range, and we're in that mountain range, but in a valley that like runs in the middle of the mountains. So there's no road that goes in and out of our town. It's just flights. So there is like a commercial company that will fly in and out, but I've avoided them so far, and I hope to continue because I've just heard really bad stories about their track record with flights.
I won't fly with them.
One time I was almost going to, and then something happened where Daniel could fly me, and I was so happy. So, like if I want to go out to the coast where there's bigger shops and kind of more to do and a beach and stuff, then I have to get a flight with him. So, it's pricey. So, like I try to get it every 3 months if I can, if I don't need to go before then. So, if we want to do something fun as a family, we have to kind of be creative because there's no parks or things like that. So this is a little pond that we kind of discovered, not me, but some other people. Usually Papuans will like bathe in it or fish in it or do other stuff I probably don't want to hear about. But so this is like a little pond where we took all the kids, and there's like a group of Papuans here kind of watching all the whiteys with their inner tubes and like all this crazy stuff we brought. And it's not that we don't want them to interact, but they just sort of sit and watch, just like they're watching TV. They're just like, oh, look at this. It's like we talk to them, give them a treat, like we guys bring little cookies for them or something, but they just sort of want to watch. It's really weird. And then like we disrupt their fishing and they have to leave. So this is another little river we went to, another little spot we like to go to, just like pack a picnic. And that's Lily and Ellie hanging out. So this is like the middle. We live on a base, so there's like a wall all the way around. It's an MAF base because it was built years and years ago before there was really much going on in the town. And it's also a safety issue of, like Daniel told you, there's going to be these little like breakout riots. And of course there's gunfire and stuff. And they're not ever after us, but it's between their two groups. And so we just want to not be involved in that. So they do require us to live on the base. So it's just MAF people, which sometimes I feel sad about, but it's not really our choice, so we just kind of accept it. And there's a big soccer field in the middle, so that's really nice for the kids. They just sort of run out and play, and I have to watch them a little bit, but only our 2 MAF cars really go on the base. Like if I know nobody's out, I'll just be like, oh yeah, go play. So that's like our little group. We had a 4th of July party. And it was funny because it was like all these Dutch missionaries who came with their like.
We had a parade. We had the kids decorate their bikes for a parade, and
it was all the Dutch kids, and it was like Swiss, German, Canadian, American, Dutch. And did the Indonesian family come? I don't remember. There probably was some Indonesians. So like they all decorated their bikes for Americans Independence Day, and also it was a girl's birthday party. And that's our house. So we really appreciate our house. It's not an Indonesian made house. It's like a Dutch company or something.
There was a Dutch mission that wanted the property MF had right by the airport, and so in exchange for that, they built our base and all the houses. So our boss always tells us these are not the MAF standard because they're pretty nice. I mean, compared to the other ones, not.
Yeah, like if it was a house here, it'd probably be like a lower income neighborhood. I mean, I'm not complaining, but it's not like Indonesian made, so it's just like a little bit better quality, and so.
We don't worry so much about it burning down.
How many are on the base? How many people?
There's like 10 buildings, but 2 of them are duplexes, and they're not all full. So like it kind of varies. There's like 8 probably right now, or maybe less.
8 families?
8 families. So like they.
Okay.
And we come and go, like we're on furlough. There's another family on furlough. And, it's never really always settled. And there's Dutch and American just right now, I think, right? So. And Daniel built this water fountain right there. It looks really little, but it's really cute and it's pretty. And
it's broken right now.
He's proud of that. And that's more playing on the soccer field. So these are like the other missionary houses. So it's really nice. I mean, I really appreciate where we live. And so there's an international school there. It's run by 3 MAF teachers. And so it's an American curriculum. And which doesn't mean we could have other non-American teachers, but right now it's 3 American teachers, and it's 1st through 8th grade. So Reese's class was 1st and 2nd grade. Her teacher taught 1st and 2nd grade in the same classroom, so they kind of break it up. So most kids, when they hit 8th grade, the family either moves or there's a boarding school on the coast, an hour flight away. So that's an option for some families. That's associated with the school. So that's the little playground that probably a group of dads built at some point. And then you're going to...
Yeah, so sometimes we'll take your kid to work day. And so this is just a chance that Joe got to come hang out with me on a day. I think he did 2 or 3 flights with me. He slept half the time. Pigs are very valuable there, and so we fly a lot of pigs out of villages. There's villages that will raise them, fly them to town and sell them. Like that pig is probably worth like $3,000 probably. And so people will buy them, like if they needed to get a wife, they'll trade pigs, or if there's like a government official who's having a party, they'll kill a bunch of pigs. So yeah, we had a pig for a little while. That a village got in a village. I get chickens given to me. Always roosters. It's always a rooster.
And I don't allow roosters in our house.
Transportation in our town. This is a bay check, and we use them some. We usually get around on a scooter, and I have an old motorcycle, but it's broken right now.
I just feel bad. There's like a small Papuan man, and me who's, probably taller than him, and my 4 kids. Like I don't want to ride him with this thing. He's pushing us around,
But yeah, most people they'll either take these or they'll take a scooter around, and that's how we get around most of the time.
But we also have a car, the MAF we all use. There's two of them. We can share it.
So I guess now, if you guys have any questions, you can really ask whatever about day-to-day life. Yes.
I have 2 questions. The first is, do y'all ever fly missionaries from Wycliffe, Bible translators?
We do. Wycliffe, actually, they have some planes there on the coast. We do occasionally. Yeah, but yeah, they have planes there, so I think usually they'll fly with their own planes when they're flying.
So, like, missionary groups, I guess, contact you or contract with you to fly them different places, or are you just there available to kind of anybody that says, hey, we need to go, how does that work exactly?
The way we do it, if we have 5 bases on the island of Papua, and so each base has a guy that will take flight requests, and so people will come in, anybody can come in and submit a flight request, and then we'll, like once a week, we'll sort through them, and so we do all the church flying first, all the missionaries first, any medical evacuations, we'll do those. And then once all of those are filled, any leftover time, we'll just do regular commercial flights. And so we make money off of those, and then we charge the missionaries and the pastors half price. So that's why we do it. And so, but we make sure all the other stuff gets taken care of first.
So medical evacuation is pre-planned stuff, not like 911.
Half and half. Well, actually, probably it's more 911 type stuff.
More urgent.
Yeah, like there's a pretty extensive HF radio network throughout Papua, and so a lot of these villages will have a radio, and we try and get on there pretty regularly, and we'll get weather from them, see how many passengers they have, that sort of stuff, and they can also contact us with that radio and say, hey, this guy fell out of a tree, broke his leg, can you come get him? It's a lot of like difficulty in labor for moms, and a lot of injuries. Once fruit season comes around, people start falling out of trees and breaking legs, and so we fly those guys. It's a pretty interesting mix.
So how do they pay?
It depends. If they have money, they'll just pay. They get money from the government. Otherwise, we do have a fund that we just, if they clearly don't have the money, we'll just throw them on a plane.
Or like as a village, I think is what they're doing. I see them sometimes like gathering money so that this mom can go with her baby or whatever.
Is that how you get the roosters? Is there people that they can?
A lot of it is just, I go to the same villages fairly regularly, so I kind of get to know the people there and develop relationships, and a lot of times it's just a thank you, because they definitely appreciate, when someone's sick that we can get them out.
Or if the kids are the kids, then they'll give us tons of pineapples and stuff because the ladies are excited. They just want to be nice.
Yeah.
How many different villages do you go to? Do you like the same ones like every week or once a month or?
Some more than others, but total there's probably 200 different airstrips. We don't go to all of them very often, but I myself go to probably 50 different airstrips. Yeah.
So landing on those is probably different for each one, huh? Or are they?
They're kind of all the same. None of them are flat. I mean, it's always you land and then you go up the big hill. Really, the biggest challenge for flying is the weather. I mean, that's the reality of it is that it's a dangerous place to fly. I think there's probably a fatal plane crash at least one a year. And because there's commercial operators there's companies that are just trying to make money. And so there are bosses that are pushing them to fly. And MAF, we haven't had a fatal accident since '87. So because we don't have that pressure.
They have a lot of standards, like a lot of curfews for some villages because it gets too windy. So you have to go to this village before 10 or whatever. So, but like the commercial guys are like, they want to make money, do 7 flights a day. That's why it only does 3 or 4 flights a day because, like the clouds come in, you cannot see the mountains, but people try to get through anyway.
Yes, there's a lot of aluminum scattered around the mountains. So.
Are there like anyone else in the town that's like foreign besides missionary people? I mean, besides like the ones coming over from Java, but I mean, are there like Americans who live in the town for any reason?
Wamena is, kind of a hub. I mean, there's Christian Missionary Alliance missionaries, Pioneer missionaries. Who else?
Yeah, people don't come there for any other reason.
There's some tourists that come, a lot of European tourists will come because they're kind of like want to go on the last, like the final, the end of the earth adventure. So they'll like go on hikes, and then sometimes they'll need like someone to come get them, and I'll see them in the grocery store, and they're just like, "Do you know what this is?" or whatever.
Someone asked her, "Do they have aloe vera here?"
And like everyone's dark skin.
No, they don't get sunburned.
No, but I have a plant at my house if you want, or But like, there's not really. I don't think there's business people. Like, maybe some different Asian, like. But
aside from the gold mine,
okay.
that's American. I think it's like American, Australian.
That seems like a million miles away from where we live. It's still on the same island, but it's just kind of.
Do you eat native?
No. Because like if we did, we just, I don't know who asked that, but we would do like sweet potatoes and sweet potato greens. I mean, I do rice because, it's everywhere. But, I mean, we like to eat, Indonesian food as a whole is different from our little island. So like if some people have a little shop where they sell, noodles or whatever, we can get that once in a while.
Or every day.
Well, he gets it every day, but I don't really want it every day. But he always gets it for lunch or something.
My MSG levels start to get low. I get
That we have a lot of ladies that come to our door selling things, so they know I like the white potatoes, so they'll bring me the white potatoes even though they're really expensive, and I buy them all because I don't know. I just like to. To me, it's like really familiar, and if we can eat well, I see people that try like they don't eat meat because it's not readily available, and I don't know. I don't think they do as well. If they're used to it. Like if you don't eat meat, and you're used to it, it's fine. But I try to work hard at giving us good meals.
There's so much other like outside stresses that like to have kind of the familiar food is nice.
Yeah.
Nacho Sunday. You have to make your tortillas and then you have to fry them, but it's worth it.
So when are y'all returning?
We were supposed to leave January 10th, so we're not here. But visas are always an issue, and so we're kind of in limbo right now. We've been told by our office in Jakarta that we'll have the visas Wednesday, and then it's another week to get them put on our passport. So I don't know, end of this month maybe. It's kind of like we'll believe it when we see it, like when we actually have the visas, we'll believe it.
So the government.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say the government's pretty friendly to you being there, I guess.
Yes and no. I mean, because it is a very Muslim. Like the government, those are all mostly Muslims that are in the government. But we have a relation. I mean, we've been in Papua for 50 years, 60 years. I think it was just.
Yeah.
So we kind of have a relationship. We have a history with them. So it's a good relationship. It's just slow. I mean, I think most developing nations, it's kind of like that. If you don't grease the palms, it can take a while. So.
I was going to ask if the kids are ready to go back or happy you're here. Or...
Reese asked me the other day, we just come back from Oklahoma, and she's like, can we just go somewhere and stay there for a year?
Uh-huh.
So, we've traveled a lot. The twins the other night were playing they were going to visit my mom. My parents live in Washington State, and they were playing airport waiting room. They were just sitting there. And so I was like, well, just, it was bedtime. I was like, well, you need to go to bed. Like, no, we haven't gone to Grandma's yet. And I said, well, go get on the plane. It's like, no, it's broken. We can't get on the plane yet. So that is the life that our kids, they spend a lot of time.
They are. I mean, I know it'll be sad to say goodbye, but I don't think they take it as hard as I do at this point, at least. You know, I'm sure as they get older, it'll be hard, but.
I mean, that's home for them. Reese was 4. The twins were 2 months old when they moved over there. So, yeah, that's home for them.
Like the restaurants and the playgrounds and all that.
Yeah, I think that's, you know, like, well, is she going to miss IHOP? Because they love IHOP and stuff. And they're like, nah, because I mean, they don't have to make the food. You know, I slave in the kitchen and make these wonderful pizzas every Friday. And they're like, your pizza's great. You know, and I'm like, oh, I miss the pizza, you know. So to them, I think if you see it through a kid's eyes, like, if somebody once told us, like, as long as y'all are okay, then they're going to be okay. And that's so true. Like, when I am stressed, you know, everything's ruined. But if I'm like, hey, pizza night, they're like, great. You know, they just think it's great. So, you know, as they become teenagers, I'm not sure how that'll change. Oh, they're, you know, 8 right now is oldest. So.
Yeah.
I asked Joe if he liked America or Wamena better, and he said, well, if Wamena had an IHOP.
So, I mean, they're really, I mean, as far as, like, happiness, they have their own struggles, but as far as, like, happiness goes, I think they're up there, you know, with most kids, just being happy kids.
When was the last time you were back here?
We came back to have the twins.
When the twins were born?
Yeah, we were there 6 months, and then we came back to have them, because we just had found out we were pregnant with twins when we moved, right when we moved there. So that's why we had already left, because we didn't know. And then, so we left when they were 2 months, 2 years, and 4 years.
Mm-hmm. And they haven't been back since y'all went back with the twins?
They haven't been back since now, yeah, since June. So it was like a solid 3 years or so. So next time we are praying, that's one way you can pray for us. We pray that we can come back earlier, because I think it's mainly for me, I'm not sure. But we pray that we can come back sooner and just have like maybe a shorter break. But our organization is pretty strict about the rules and, you know, what we've already agreed upon.
Yeah, it's a lot of money to.
Why do you want to fly?
I think I get pretty lonely. Even though there are some other missionaries and, you know, people that are Western, I just get really lonely. And I think to have the break from the culture is important for me, because I just get really, which is overwhelming to me. And then also just the family, like, you know, passing by, not seeing any family for 3 years, I think is a little long. And I think in these days, it's more of the standard to come back sooner. I mean, if it was like 20 years ago, you probably couldn't. But we actually are really blessed that we're fully supported right now. I feel like, you know, we raise our money, we have it there. I could go on and on.
The kids growing up.
Yeah, that's a lot of it. It's the kids growing up and the grandparents getting older, and also the, like, just the culture. I mean, eventually I assume they're going to come live here as teenagers or, you know, young adults, and I think it's important for them to know their own culture.
Do you have internet access and Skype and ways to communicate?
We do, thankfully, we do. Yeah, we have.
We just got it really. It works well enough to Skype.
Like right after we moved to our little town, we got this gigantic satellite from, you know, who knows where, and so we got nice internet. So we had been there just a little bit with really slow.
Are there any?
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
How do the natives who are Muslim deal with the Christian converts?
Where we are, I think it's not that big of a deal. There's some places in Indonesia, like Aceh, it's like Sharia law. I mean, it's pretty strict there. But where we are, you know, there's quite a few Christians that are Papuans and Christians from other islands, because there's some islands that consider themselves a Christian island, and so we have those. I think, you know, in Java, like where Jakarta is, you know, I think there's kind of similar family pressure, like you wouldn't convert. So yeah, I think we kind of have the whole spectrum of responses.
Are there any churches there?
There are. Because missionaries came, to Papua, 60 years ago, before Indonesia, because it really only became part of Indonesia, I don't know, not that long ago, in the late 60s, I think.
Yeah.
So, the missionaries would come in, and there's actually stories about, like, one family we know that works in a tribe, who the chief's, like, great-grandfather had told him, that a white person will come and tell you about God, really. And so they had waited for years, and the family came. So because of like their animistic kind of past, like the gospel came in and was pretty well received. But then in the 80s, the government kicked out pretty much all the missionaries except for MAF. And so the church is there, but it's very weak in a lot of places. It's mixed with politics, and so if you want to get rich, you want to be a politician. So a lot of the times the easiest way to do that is become a pastor, and then you can kind of work your way up the ladder. So yeah, I think there's a lot of work for the people. They're doing like church leadership development and discipleship type stuff. Any other questions?
So Daniel, the big question, one of the big questions, what can our class do to help you all?
We talked, Mary and I talked a lot about it. Just, I think praying for us would be huge. Like, I don't know what you guys do. Like, you take prayer requests every week, but I could be good about giving Mary what's going on in our family this week, or we'll have to try it. Like maybe monthly. I don't know. Weekly would be awesome. So I think that's really, really helpful. Just and like to know that we have somebody thinking about us and praying for us and who are cheering us on and stuff. I think helps me, especially in just those lonely moments. And you kind of doubt, like, what am I doing here? Is this too hard? Just to have that support.
You can mail us pepperoni too.
That was Daniel's love language. Okay.
Yeah, right. We really like to have pepperoni.
Do you have a newsletter, like an email newsletter?
We do. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't think you can sign up for it here, or we could just put you on our list.
There's prayer cards.
Somebody would like to get our newsletter. You can just write your name. I could not find paper last night, so I stole my son's.
We send out a newsletter, I think, for a year, and so definitely that. But we've at times sent monthly emails as well. Right now, we're not doing that, but it's a possibility.
How long does it take for you to get mail at your home?
If it's like a letter, then it could take as quick as 2 weeks. If it's a package, then it takes a long time. It could take a month or two.
Sometimes
Who knows?
It's
yeah.
like no rhyme or reason.
Sometimes they don't show up. Like one just never showed up. Some we've gotten in 3 weeks maybe.
Yeah. So it's not super reliable if you don't send anything expensive. If you're just sending pepperoni and taco sesame, then it's like, well, it's fine. But my mom sends a lot of things, and she's lost a few things through it all.
Yeah. That is the quietest baby.
How does your mom do with y'all being there? Becky? Does she accept it?
She does accept it, yeah. Both my parents, they accept it. I mean, they've actually come to visit us once when we lived on the other side. We lived in Java for language school for a year, and they came here. And they have never been outside the U.S. except for the London. So they definitely accept it. They love us. They support us. They give us a lot of packages and love and care. So I don't know if they go as deep with it as we do. I mean, they do see as like a help to others, but I'm not sure if they completely I know they don't completely grasp the spiritual end of it. But it's sad. I mean, it's really sad. Like, it is very, very sad to leave. And so, yeah, it's very sad for my mom especially. Especially since we've lived there for 6 months now.
I don't know, she might be ready for us.
She is ready for us to go, but at the same time, it's really sad.
Let's pray for the Perez's quickly, and then we'll have prayer requests. Actually,
Or do you want to do it together?
Well, yeah, probably what we should do is, from now on, we'll do something like prayer, praise, Perez.